By the way, another breaking news story out of the Patriots. Another one of their players is opting out. Running back Brandon Bolden makes him the 5th New England Patriot player to opt not to play this season. And that's going to, interestingly enough, free up a lot of different money for the New England Patriots on cap space. They're now going to have $23 million plus in cap space to go out and sign new players on one-year deals for this particular season. So could a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, Logan Ryan, those are two guys that immediately kind of come to mind who are current free agents still that have not yet signed as we approach training camp. Remember, Logan Ryan is a former Patriot. Could there be some interest in these guys to potentially sign and return to their teams or sign one-year deals to go play for the Patriots as they have salary cap space over these guys choosing not to play? You also have to wonder, is this in any kind of way the Patriot players voting on what they expect of this season? With Tom Brady gone, would these same Patriots have made the decision not to come back if Tom Brady were still playing? In other words, I think it's easier to decide not to play when you've already won a championship and or when you think your team is not very close to winning a championship than it is when you think you're right there, one of the 4 or 5 best teams in football. I don't know the answer. And again, if you're just waking up with this, Dante Hightower has chosen not to play along. He's the biggest name by far of the Patriot crew that has stepped out. But this is 5 different Patriot players who have opted out of playing. And Danny G, you told me that they need to announce by August 3rd.
August 3rd is the date you have to opt out if you are worried about the COVID situation.
So basically that's by the end of the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, by Monday of next week. I think the math is right there. I don't have the calendar in front of me right now. But that kind of gives you a context on when the decision has to be made. August 3rd is next Monday. Yeah. So basically in 6 days, everybody has to decide in the NFL whether or not they want to play. And I think that's perfectly fine. If you decide you don't want to play. Personally, I would play. I'm not concerned about the coronavirus as a reason not to work if I'm a player, particularly if I'm an NFL player where you have relatively limited numbers of years that you can play no matter what. But I respect the right of any athlete out there to make a decision, or coach for that matter, to make a decision that makes the most sense for them and choose not to play. So we will see what exactly ends up happening in terms of how many players are going to make this decision between now and and August 3rd, the deadline. But I do think it's an intriguing sort of decision being made that doesn't seem to me to reflect great confidence in this year's New England Patriot team. And maybe Patriot players are more likely to sit out because they've been out there and won championships already. But with Cam Newton coming in for a year, if I'm him, I want as much talent around me as I possibly can get. And now the Patriots have $23 million plus to distribute to a variety of different players around the league right now. So it will be interesting to see what ends up coming from that. Do you think, guys, I'll go in reverse order here. Roberto, does it seem like a little bit of a sign maybe that the Patriots don't think that dynasty is still rolling, that 5 of them already are opting out?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by it, but also who was was Devin McCourty the one who had his comments yesterday saying that he doesn't think that they're going to play this season because of guys going out to clubs, and he's seeing guys going traveling from city to city. So it seems like maybe it's a thing in the Patriots that they're all pretty much worried about this. And I'm surprised by you, Clay. You're being very nice to these athletes who are deciding not to play.
I mean, I think it's their right.
Screw David Price, man.
Yeah,
Clay, would you give any of us a stipend if we decided not to come into the studios?
No.
David Price made over $300 million. He's got, he's got them. What about these workers that have to go to work every day?
Yeah, but yes, I totally agree. If you are, there are so many people out there who don't have the luxury to choose not to work, even if they might be scared. In fact, almost everybody listening to me right now doesn't have that luxury. But if you are super rich, one of the goals of being super rich is being able to do whatever you want. And so for me, and I said this from the get-go, like it would have been easy for me to take a lot of days off during the coronavirus, right? There was no sports for months at a time. There was, I've got a ton of vacation time backed up. I got a big pay cut, which basically meant that I was working many weeks for free. So I could have, and I don't think anybody would have complained at our business, I could have taken 6 weeks off since March started and not been here talking to you guys. Instead, and I don't mean you guys on the show, I mean you guys out there listening in the audience. Instead, I'm going to take the least amount of vacation time in a summer that I have taken in 5 years of doing this show. And that's because I thought it was important to show up every day and talk to my audience in a time when people were scared, when they were fearful, when they were apprehensive. I thought it was important to be here every day. And so I barely took any vacation at all. In fact, I'm in my house now for the next 10 days entirely by myself because my wife is up in Michigan with our entire family. Now, partly that was a function of my television show starting back up today, so I might have taken a few more days off, but I hardly took any time off at all. But if I had $250 million in the bank, maybe I would have thought differently about my obligations from a work perspective. Now, also, I've got a home studio for television and for radio, but you guys know, I mean, I traveled down and did the show from Florida for a month. I moved around with my family. We go out to restaurants. I mean, I'm living my life normally because I think it's important for me to live as I'm telling people that I would do. But I don't have any problem with an athlete disagreeing. I don't think it's factually very smart. I don't think they're under much danger. And if I were an athlete, I would play. But I understand the desire not to play. And if you have so much money that you don't want to do it, more power to you. I mean, I said the same thing, Roberto, about like some people haven't left their houses. You know, it's true. Like I was seeing like people tweeting like it's been 100 some odd days. Some people are so panicked and so afraid that they haven't left their houses since the initial shutdown. Now, I think that's crazy, right? I mean, I've flown on airplanes. I have been going out to restaurants for months. I mean, I'm going to go to the gym as I've been doing for months. Like, I'm living my life pretty much as a normal fashion because I don't think you can shut down forever from the virus. Now, try to be smart. Like, try to do things to limit. I'm not going to nursing homes and, you know, like running around high-fiving everybody in the nursing home or hanging out there or anything like that. I'm trying to limit my exposure to older people who are most susceptible to this virus. But my kids went to summer camps. I want in my area of Nashville, it's kind of a weird, wacky thing, but they're opening up in-person classes for kindergarten through second grade. And so my kindergartner is going to be in school starting in a couple weeks. My fourth grader and my fourth grader is going to be remote. Seventh grader, we're not sure about yet. But I mean, I'm living my life normally, but that doesn't mean that everybody else has to agree with me.
And I have too. The thing that I would do with my wife and my daughter, our normal things are still closed, like the zoo and Universal Studios and going to Dodger games, things of that nature. But we go out on our hikes and things of that nature where we can go outside.
I mean, I would take my kids to Disney World. I mean, if I were other than the fact I've said before, I mean, it's 150 degrees in Orlando in the middle of July, late July, headed into August. I'd be a lot less happy to be walking around with a mask on in 150 degrees and worried about, stroking out because it's so hot. But in terms of fear, I would take my kids to Disney World. If the Tennessee Titans, where I have season tickets, if they open up socially distanced seating and they allow 20,000 people to go to games, I mean, I would take my kids there. Now, I would tell my dad and mom, hey, I don't think you guys should go. You're 75 years old. You're in a higher risk category than somebody of my age or somebody of my kids' ages are. But, I mean, I've never not taken my kids somewhere because of the flu, and they are 6 times as likely based on CDC data, to die of the flu. So, I mean, I'm just not going to change my entire life in that respect. What about you, Eddie? Are you surprised at the number of Patriots that are opting out of the season?
It would be interesting to see if Tom Brady was still on the team.
I just think it wouldn't be as high.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. So I guess I'm not surprised because Tom Brady's not there anymore because they
It definitely, though, after the long dynasty that the Patriots have had, it's definitely intriguing that they are making the decision not to come back and play. And it definitely thinks that I definitely think it is fascinating to consider whether they would have made the same decision if Tom Brady were there. What about you, Dub? Surprised?
I mean, the only surprising thing is that the Patriots are the only team that have had any players announced, and they've had 5. But I guess when you kind of break it down more and you
the Chiefs tackle, who's also a doctor, chose not to come back.
That's right.
I mean, I think there are a few other guys who have done it, but by far the Patriots have had the most.
And when you kind of break it down further, it does make sense that, no more Tom Brady, and they've gone on a 20-year run where they have had a lot of Super Bowls. I guess if there was one team to say, yeah, we might take a year off, it would be guys from the Patriots.